Why do people judge me for living with family at 21?
I'm just curious because I pay rent and put myself forward and I never pay a bill late. I feel sad when it feels like I'm being judged. And I really want to move out, but money would be tight and I don't think I'd be able to afford everything based upon the math I've done. Hey, 21 is really young. I don't know who would judge you for living with your parents at 21. We live in an extremely fast-paced society nowadays. Living with your parents at 21 wasn't really a problem 20 years ago or even 10. Then it started with Facebook and Instagram and boom, now you are expected to get a mansion before you are legally allowed to drink. So, don't stress it. It's just people being stupid and comparing themselves to actors, models, children of rich families and the small percent of regular people that make it. My advice is to kindly remind those people who bought them their brand new iPhone. You'd be surprised, LMAO. I'm 20 and my dad has been telling me to move out since 18. My mom is the only reason I'm staying until I get enough money for her to not worry about me when I leave, but he's the one who judges me for not leaving at 18 like he did when he was kicked out, forced to serve this nation we claim is united, and used to be in a gang and did many things I've never thought about doing, but because things weren't this way for him, he wants the exact same pain and annoyance for me in the name of being an adult. But when it comes to me contributing to bills, me still cleaning the house and him not picking up a share of cleaning, and me paying other bills and deciding what to do with my money, I'm still not an adult until the time is right and I'm getting my ass chewed for being an adult in his home still, LMAO. Can't wait to save up more and leave this stressful environment. There's never any winning when it comes to him. Very old school, and communication consists of what he thinks it should be and how I can accommodate and mold myself to make his life easier. Amazing. I'm glad my feelings and human existence was completely taken into account there. I'm 28 and live with my parents. I moved back after graduating from college. I am saving up for a down payment on a home. I don't see what anyone else thinks. I'm making sure I'm financially stable and secure before I move out. Sure, when I was in college I had my own app, but you will save literally thousands upon thousands of dollars when you don't have to pay rent. Reason why I moved back home. Even if you live at home and you pay rent, it's not as much rent as a traditional apartment. Fuck what anyone else thinks. You're doing what's best for you. Glad I'm not the only late 20s person at home. I'm almost 28, and grad school's expensive. So I'm still at home for now. I'm also saving for a house, well, trying to with school, because I would rather pay more for a house and have something to show for it than just dump money into rent. I'm starting to feel really self-conscious about it, but I'm glad it's not just me. The question is, why does it bother you? I'm 24 and living with my mom and she's fine with it. I pay my rent, bills, help out with groceries. People move out or live on their own when they feel they're ready, when there's opportunity, when the timing suits them. I don't think moving out should be rushed or be done unplanned. Thing is, people move at different paces in their lives. Doesn't apply to everybody. Moved out when I was 17. I'm 35 now. Stay with your parents, save up money, and start your life out right. There was a lot of extra responsibility involved and I needed to hold 3 jobs for several years. My family sucked, parents were divorcing, and it wasn't really an option, but if it was and I could go back I'd probably stay home until I was 23/24 and could look into buying land or a house. Wow, 17. That was really young age. Just a genuine question, were you doing well at that time when you moved out? How did you do that? I moved out about 10 years ago at 18 to further study and stay on for working. TBH, I envy peoples who get to stay at their parents' house. In the first few years of your career, living with parents can really help you to build stable financial foundation. It can ease the financial burden so much and that money can be channeled to so many other things. But in my case, I had to move away because of the work demands. But oh well, how I wish I have my parents' house on the same city I work. Just ignore what a lot of people say and work on your goals. Save some money toward a house down the line and work toward a career while you're still young. The dorks that are shaming you for living at home will probably end up in a shitty dead-end job while spending 80% of their paychecks on just rent alone. The housing market is garbage right now and rent is through the roof. I feel like this is just a US thing. I live in Europe, I'm 21 and I live with my family and nobody thinks it's weird. Most people live with parents at 21 here. I don't even pay rent because that's not common here. Parents in my country are legally obligated to provide for their children for as long as they're still studying, so like even university. It's really just a culture thing. I feel like people in the US should finally realize that living with your parents is completely normal in many countries all around the world and even in developed countries in Europe. But either way, they shouldn't judge you because it's understandable that not everyone has money to move out. Just ignore what people say. I'm 29 and still live at home. I pay rent and I'm helping to pay off the mortgage. I don't even get why having your own place matters. I have my own room and my dad doesn't bother me. We're like roommates. The only way I would move out now would be if I was in a serious relationship. I'm 21 living with parents, software developer working towards big projects while making a decent income. My parents love having me around and I love living with them. I could make the money to live a comfortable life alone, but I don't need to. Everyone in my family is happy, including me, and what others think don't have the slightest effect on me. I advise you to have a similar mindset. Life becomes fun and easy when you stop giving a damn. Because you're in America and surrounded by idiots. My kids are 21 and 26, still here. Our deal is bank all you can so you have a chance to buy when you move out. They'd pay as much for rent as we do. Why? It's nuts. I'm glad I left the States. My kids would be judged there too. Don't give a single shit what other people think. Man f*** all negative sayings from people. I'm 37 and I'm just gonna move out. I lost my mom. I've been abroad. I saved money. I had time to work on my goals and now I feel like I'm ready. Don't be thinking that you can't do something. If you don't know how, just do it. You'll find a way for sure. Doors will open up by the grace of the Almighty. Because in the US, if you're here, it's ideal to move out at 18, even if this isn't really doable for most people. In other countries, children stay with their parents until marriage or even after that. It's just the way our society is. If you live at home in your 20s, then the general view is that you are lazy or unmotivated, but every situation is different and right now is a very difficult time to strike out on your own. I'm guessing you have to pay all of your own bills, which also makes it hard. When I was young, most of the young people I knew who lived on their own had parents who paid for their cell phone, car insurance, etc. That is a big leg up that some people get while starting out. You will get there. Just keep working at it. I am in Asia and even when we want to move out our parents will not let us. I started working at 19 and helped out at house, but most wait till their masters to start working. Cultural difference is huge. The American culture is nice because it teaches young people to be self-dependent, unlike here where I can find people who are older than me still not having had a single job and living off a family. I hate that this lazy stereotype exists. I find myself having to constantly explain how I do make enough to live on my own, but I choose to live at home due to my parents having financial struggles that would see them risk losing their house if I don't stay at home. Living at home doesn't mean not paying rent and mooching off your parents. But some people, mostly those with parents wealthy enough to help take the burden of their bills, will judge me like I'm scum. I moved out just before I turned 18. I always paid my way. Today is more expensive, and if you are paying rent and bills, and your home is safe, there is no reason to move out on your own. Now if you were 21 and living off your parents, not contributing, working, cleaning the house, etc., well, that would be something to be judgmental about. Stay at home and enjoy being an adult. Life is not as cheap as when I was 18. Our society places too much emphasis on the individual versus the family. I felt the pressure to move out from every direction. If I was 18 to 25 today, I'd probably still be at my parents' house as well. Don't stress it. For one, corny, I know, it doesn't matter what other people think. For two, you've said you want to move out. It's not like your life plan is to live with your family and give each other bowl cuts on the first of every month until the end of time. There's a difference between what you are doing and someone who has no ambition or desire to find their own place. You're doing the smart thing now, rather than rushing into something you can't afford, digging a hole of debt, and having to live at home in your 30s instead of your 20s. My husband lived with his parents till we basically got married. I lived on my own in college, but moved back home after college and lived there from the age 22 to 25. Then I got kicked out for reasons, my mother is a narcissist, etc. And I lived with my boyfriend, now husband, and his parents, who are wonderful people, until we saved up enough for our house and a good nest egg. I was 27 when we bought our house, he was 29. We definitely got comments from friends and coworkers, but we generally shut them up by saying how much we were saving and how nice it was to have his mom around. I call her my fairy godmother, because I swear that woman has magic. It was a welcome change from the home life I grew up with. Moral of the story: do what's best for you and yours. It wasn't a deal breaker for me that my husband lived at home that long. So as long as you're learning skills now that you can use when you live on your own and saving money, I don't see a problem. I think I can give insight into the why, which is what the question at hand is, so don't come for me lol. As someone your age who's lived alone for 5 years, it can create a bit of resentment toward people who didn't have to struggle the way I did. I think it's really common in our society for people to have similar experiences. You have to understand that it's a privilege to stay home with your parents. Many people don't have the ability or healthy enough family relationships to do so. The same way attending a university and living there is a privilege. I've personally done a lot of work around this, but at times I do still feel as though people who chose to stay home or go to university are taking an easy path and extending their childhood. I wish I would have had a healthy home to stay in, and didn't financially wreck myself to stay alive like so many other people our age have had to. At the end of the day, take this with a grain of salt, it's their trauma speaking. 24-year-old here, don't feel bad, I never moved out, not even for university, 20 to 24. In my circumstances, I lived 20 minutes away from university and 10 minutes away from my job. Also, I didn't need to get into further debt by taking out maintenance loans to live in student accommodation or dodgy housing. Personally, I don't feel bad for not moving out. Living with my parents has helped me save up, and I also live in a comfortable house with people who love me, and I have all the space to do what I'd want, something that I wouldn't have had living with strangers because I really like my own space. I make sure to help out anywhere I can in return, and also pay a small maintenance fee just so I'm not completely freeloading. I have no issue telling people where I live, and even girls that I have dated have accepted my living situation. The bottom line is, don't make it a big deal, and the people who do make it a big deal about your living situation aren't worth knowing. In Asian families, culture, it's very common for adults, even at approximately 30 years old, to still live with their parents. I'm Asian and I know Asian individuals in their 30s, close to 30s, who still live with their parents. I was thinking about this the other day, about the unspoken expectancy of moving out of your parents' home once you strike 18. I think it's just an established norm in Western, North American culture. Much like how living with your parents when you're a full-fledged adult is normal in one culture, moving out at a younger age is considered normal in a different culture. People in North America will think you're weird and will judge you according to the Western norms and perspectives they have come to understand, although this judgment is unwarranted. I am 20 and I still proudly live with my parents. I definitely would not be able to support myself if I moved out as a uni student, and definitely don't intend on moving out until I'm married or have a stable career. They don't want me to leave either, so win-win. Don't get caught up in what they think. Unless they're paying your bills, it's not their problem. It frustrates me when people judge me for the same reason. It drags me down and is just plain not nice. Sometimes I think it's just them making conversation or trying to make themselves feel better for dumping tons of money into rent. I'm 27 and live with my divorced mom. For the most part, it goes well. We split the mortgage cost, I own half the house, we split the utilities, we split food costs, we each have our own cars we pay for, etc. There are plenty of pros. For example, my mom cooks several days a week, and that saves us money. She does my laundry at her insistence while I take care of yard work. I'm able to stay with our family dog, who loves me very much and has helped a ton with my anxiety. I have more living space than a typical apartment in my area for lower cost, plus no restrictions on pets and the like, as I also have exotic pets. The problems come into play when it comes to socializing, especially in the age of COVID. Friends seem to be apprehensive around her when we're hanging in my room. My boyfriend and I obviously can't do things like have sex or cuddle naked whilst playing video games with her there. She works nights a few days a week, so we have some time for that, but I have to keep it a secret and obsess about cleaning up and the like. My boyfriend is in a similar situation, so he understands. In addition, my mom is still too motherly at times, still feeling a need to try and involve herself with my affairs and be protective. Therapy has helped me develop ways to deflect this without being offensive. My goal is to have my own home by the time I turn 30 and help my mom move into a place she can retire into. My boyfriend has a similar goal, so if things go well with us, we may end up just living together eventually. But for right now, I don't regret living at home. People compliment me on it all the time, saying I'm being responsible and realistic, and those people are mature and successful. I'm 24. I moved away from my parents' house at 23 years old, to live with other family members. There is no shame on living with family. It's cheaper, and you have someone to talk to. I've actually managed to save some money, enough to take my driver's license, go to college, and still have enough buy a car, and start to buy a house. Save money while you live with your parents. You don't have to own a place at 21. You are still extremely young. Don't let other people's ignorance get you down. I'm assuming you are in the United States. For some reason, in this country, we are conditioned to think that by the age of 18 we are supposed to have it all figured out and be completely independent. In countries all over the world, this is not the way things operate, and single people continue living at home for years beyond what we consider acceptable. I have been on my own since 17, and if I could go back and stay with my parents for a few more years, I absolutely would. If you have a healthy home environment and a supportive family, there's no reason to jump out into the world by yourself before you're ready. 3 of my adult siblings still live with mom, the oldest of which moved back in because of the pandemic. They are all in their 20s. I went back and stayed with my mom for 3 months when I was 23, and while it did feel like I was taking a step backwards because I had already been on my own for so many years, it didn't really bother me. I needed a break and I was very lucky to get one. You're going to be okay. I wouldn't judge anyone for it, but I don't know anyone who lives with their parents at 21. I moved out when I was 17, and once again for a few months when I was 23 because I had just left an abusive relationship, but I always wanted my own freedom since my parents are completely overbearing and like to control my life. Also, my dad was mistreating my dog, which was a huge no for me. But if my parents weren't like that and just kinda let me be a human being instead of their slave project, then I could see living with them till I was more financially stable. But I made it work without them. You'd be surprised how little you can actually live off of. Anyway, I digress. If your parents are decent enough people that you can tolerate living with them and vice versa, I don't see a damn thing wrong with that. Good for you and your family, honestly, if you can live cohesively. No matter what you do, people will judge you for it. There are 2 things with this. First of all, it is important only for you to decide what is right for you. Is this a healthy decision? Like living at home rather than going into debt for student loans to live in a dorm might mean you are well ahead of the jerks who are judging you now when you are 30 and living debt-free while they are drowning in debt. Because it is important to remember that people judge other people as a way of making themselves feel less bad about themselves. It has very little to do with you. The other thing is to apply what I call the Jan test. Many years ago I was working at a fairly toxic place with a lot of judgmental people. I received a small inheritance and bought a new van. A bunch of people were running a strange kind of jealous, nice for some, but then my wife told our friend Jan about how I got a new van. She burst into tears and said, "That is so good. He does so many good things for other people. I'm so pleased that he has had some good fortune." The Jan test. They're probably dickbags anyway, but otherwise maybe seeing your situation based on someone else they knew previously, which has nothing to do with you. 21 is young as hell, and the biggest reason I moved out earlier is because my home life was absolutely shit. So if you have it good at home and that lets you save money so you can actually prepare and be in a good situation later on, you are doing fine, and anyone judging you can fuck right off. Also, I've known plenty of people like 25 plus who still lived at home, so I'm 30, with kids and a husband. My parents own a 2-story split-level duplex, full homes with 3+ BR and 2 bath each level. After my father had a heart attack and they began to get older 60 plus, they asked us to move back home to help care for them. Mother is now retired and has trouble getting around. Father fully recovered but has diabetes and blood sugar problems. The house is paid off and we pay electric while they pay water. We pay our own TV subscriptions, food, etc. It works great for all of us. And even better for our kids who get to see their grandparents daily. Don't let anyone judge your life if it works for you. Honestly, I don't see a problem. My sister is 27 and still lives with us. I'm 20 and still live with my parents apart from when I'm at uni. I don't even know how 19-year-olds are moving out. Where do they get the money, honestly? I think it's just your perception of it. Here in the UK, it's very common to live with your parents throughout your 20s. I'm from an Indian background too, so it's even more common within our community. We don't even pay rent. That makes it even more commendable that you do. I lived with my parents until my mid-20s. Most people I know who rushed to move out of their parents' place at 18 to 20 and acted stuck up about it, ended up moving back in with them in their 30s so they could save money for a down payment on a house, or worse, just so they could pay back debt. It's probably better if you keep living at home as long as you make sure that you're using the time you spend there wisely to save money and build up for your future stability. And don't take your parents for granted. Do your own laundry. Do your fair share of household chores. Contribute to the cost of food. Even if your parents don't expect it, you should treat them with the same amount of respect that you would a stranger that you're roommates with, and don't take their hospitality for granted. I am 21 and I live out of house because my living situation was not a safe or comfortable environment. I can only afford it because of financial aid. However, I can't afford anything I want and I am super tight on money all the time. If I was able to emotionally, I 100% would stay at home. People don't realize how expensive and difficult it is to move out nowadays. Don't let anybody make you feel bad for trying to save money. Assuming you're living in the US, which is the only place I can speak for, it's just a sucky part of the culture that hasn't changed since the days when it wasn't expected of you to get a 4-year degree, much less a particularly competitive one, and when expenses weren't that expensive. There was a lot more purchasing power, better wages, however you want to pin it, per person in previous generations than now, and there's a lot of historical context, expectations that just never changed, even though times have. Anyway, maybe just my own hot take, but I think, unless you have special circumstances, e.g., abusive parents, company-provided housing nearby, maybe marriage counts? That's a whole nother conversation though. It's kind of weirdly wasteful to move out of your family home just to pay for it, move into another place 5 miles away. No judgment, mate. I guess it helps that we're around the same age, but almost none of my peers are financially independent from their parents by now either. I hope anyone who gives you bald vibes for being fiscally responsible stops bugging you about it, even if that means you have to desensitize yourself to their ugliness, especially considering the times. Who's making a surplus of money right now to move out and buy everything that's needed for a full home, with a financial cushion if things don't go well, and you can feel more comfortable with yourself and your financial situation? Honestly, even the fact that you're paying rent to your family is impressive enough. Give yourself more credit, and don't hold yourself to a standard like this that you wouldn't hold someone else to. Student loans, graduate education are kinda pricey, haha, and it's hard to make enough to make ends meet while keeping up a competitive GPA. Joke's on them. I moved out renting at 24 and moved back at 26. Waste of fucking money. Trust me, in 5 years when you own a home, you'll be having the last laugh. Stay home as long as possible. I promise you won't regret it. Save and buy a nice place rather than letting peer pressure get you into the trap of renting. Thank God I was only paying $600 since I had roommates, but still $600 down the drain I could have been saving. Did have some fun times though. Once you reach a certain age, you stop caring what people think. Do what's best financially. There are people who will judge you for everything in life. If you're single or not, married or not, have kids or not, a house or not, lots of things that others feel they have a right to have an opinion on, which if they were nicer or more empathetic they wouldn't. You're just getting to adulthood and have so much time ahead of you to learn to love yourself, forgive yourself for mistakes, really they're more learning moments, and figure out how to be the best version of you possible. As you get older, those judgments will sometimes still get to you, but hopefully less as you figure out for yourself what is and what isn't really worth taking seriously.
Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video. And if you are new, subscribe and click on the bell icon.